If you ever find a motorcycle sitting alone inside an old barn, don't touch it. Because the biggest danger in that barn may not be the motorcycle, or the building, or even the owner. It might be the air itself. And right now, somewhere in America, there's a guy on a gravel road slowing his truck down beside a collapsing old barn. He's leaning toward the window, and through a gap in the siding, he can just make out the shape of something he hasn't seen in a very long time: a motorcycle. Earlier this year, one of the very first Honda CB750 prototypes ever built sold for over $300,000 at auction. And that's exactly why this guy is about to make a terrible decision. Because what looks like a forgotten jackpot can turn into a hospital visit, a police investigation, or a funeral faster than most riders realize. This video is for him.
Act 1. The Dream. First, let's be honest about something. The barn find dream is real. It's one of the most powerful things in motorcycle culture. The idea that somewhere, behind a rotting door on a forgotten property, a machine is sitting untouched, waiting. Every rider has felt it. There are hundreds of documented cases: Vincents, Indians, Hendersons, Harleys, pulled from the dust of garages and barns across America, Britain, Vietnam, and Australia. Some of the stories are almost unbelievable. Jay Leno once called his Tonight Show audience on air and asked if anyone had a Vincent gas tank they'd sell him. A viewer called back. He had an entire 1947 Series B Black Shadow, complete. Leno bought it on the spot. Steve McQueen owned approximately 200 motorcycles at the time of his death. His first was a 1946 Indian Chief, bought in 1951 in Greenwich Village. When his girlfriend told him it was either her or the motorcycle, there was no contest. She went. These stories are why the dream never dies, because sometimes it's true. Now, here's the Honda CB750. If you were riding in America between 1969 and 1985, you know this bike. You either owned one, wanted one, or watched someone ride one and never forgot it. Smooth inline four chrome pipes, disc brake up front when most bikes still felt ancient. Quarter mile in 13 seconds, 125 miles per hour on a straight road. It was the bike that invented the word superbike. But a sandcast is something else. When Honda built the 750, they weren't sure it would sell, so the first 7,414 engine cases were poured into sand molds, rough cast, slightly porous, with a texture like rough orange peel, completely different from everything that came after. Engine number CB750E 1007414 was the last one off that line. A running sandcast today can sell in the 20s or 30s of thousands of dollars. A pristine restored example goes higher, and a pre-production prototype, the very first CB750s Honda ever built, went for $313,000 earlier this year. This is the bike most likely to be sitting in an old American barn right now, forgotten, covered in history. And this is where the dream ends.
Act 2. What's waiting inside? The biological trap. Our guy's out of the truck, he's walked across the property, he's standing at the barn door. He pulls it open, and a wall of stale air hits him. That air could kill him, and I'm not being dramatic. The most dangerous thing in an abandoned barn in rural America isn't the rotting floorboards, it's not the rusted metal, it's the air. Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome. The CDC has tracked it since 1993. Approximately 1 in 3 people who develop full respiratory symptoms die. No cure, no vaccine, only supportive care in an intensive care unit while your lungs fill with fluid. Hantavirus is carried by deer mice. Deer mice live in old barns. They nest in motorcycle seats, inside fuel tanks, inside exhaust pipes. Their droppings dry out and become dust. When you pull a tarp off a motorcycle that's been sitting for 40 years, that dust goes airborne. You breathe it in, and you don't know it happened for 2 to 8 weeks, by which time you're already in a hospital. The cases are concentrated west of the Mississippi, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, the Dakotas, but they're not limited to those states. And in 2026, with Hantavirus making international headlines for the first time in years, this is not a distant risk. A proper respirator is your minimum entry fee before you touch anything that's been closed for years. Then there are the spiders. Brown recluse, black widow, both love exactly what's in that barn. Reach into the wrong saddlebag without looking, and your night changes instantly. And then there's the barn itself. An abandoned building ages roughly 5 years for every calendar year it sits vacant. Water rots the wood from the inside. Metal fasteners rust through. The floor joists holding on by fiber. The section that looks fine, it might not hold you. Many pre-1980 barns still contain asbestos materials. Assume it's there until proven otherwise.
The mechanical trap. He's made it to the motorcycle and he wants to start it. Don't. Modern gasoline degrades within 6 weeks in a vented tank. After years in a barn, it's varnish. The carburetors are already destroyed. The rubber fuel lines have cracked. But here's what most people don't think about. Mice build nests in airboxes. The second that engine turns over, all that debris gets sucked straight in. You'll bend a connecting rod before it even coughs. That's hydrolock. Your barn find just became a paperweight with a seized motor. And when you rock the bike to get it rolling, that cracked fuel line finishes breaking. Residual fuel meets the first spark. An old barn, bone-dry wood, decades of hay dust is gone in minutes, with him inside it. If you ever legitimately acquire a barn find bike, the first thing you pour into that tank, after a full drain and clean, is a quality fuel stabilizer. There are good options in the description.
Act 3. The legal trap, the trespass. Everything I've described assumes he got into the barn alive. Now let's talk about the person whose barn it is. Listen, I get it. Every rider has had that moment. Gravel road, gap in the siding, something in there that shouldn't be forgotten. The pull is real, but what most people never think about is that somewhere on that property, there's someone watching. In many U.S. states, property owners can legally use deadly force against someone they reasonably believe is committing a criminal act on their land. Not just inside the house, on the property, in the barn, in the field. You don't have to be threatening anyone, you just have to be there. Out there in the middle of nowhere, things can go bad fast. Let me tell you about Kaylin Gillis. April 15th, 2023, upstate New York. Kaylin was 20 years old. She was in a car with friends looking for a party. They turned into the wrong rural driveway. The homeowner, Kevin Monahan, 65, fired 2 shotgun blasts from his front porch. One struck Kaylin in the neck. She died before the ambulance arrived. Monahan's own defense argued that the presence of a motorcycle among the group of vehicles contributed to his fear. A motorcycle in a driveway at night. 20 years old. Gone. Monahan was convicted of second-degree murder, 25 years to life, but Kaylin Gillis is still dead. And in Missoula, Montana in 2014, a 17-year-old German exchange student named Diren Dede walked into a homeowner's garage. The owner had left the door open as bait after a string of local burglaries. 4 shotgun blasts. Diren Dede died in that garage. The shooter got 70 years. Both shooters went to prison. Both of those kids are still dead. And those are the cases where the system worked exactly as designed. Regardless of where you stand on property rights, the reality on the ground is this: you don't want to be the test case for a local prosecutor. An abandoned-looking barn is not an invitation. And in rural Wyoming, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, or Montana, "I was just looking" is a sentence you may not get to finish. If this is landing the way I think it is, if you've been riding for 20, 30 years and never saw all of this put together, hit subscribe, because this is exactly what we do here, the real story. We're not done yet.
Act 4. The financial trap. The bike isn't his. Let's say he survives everything I've just described, finds the property owner, makes a deal, hands over cash, loads the bike in the truck. Here's where the last trap closes.
The National Insurance Crime Bureau reported over 54,000 motorcycles stolen in a single recent year, a 7% jump over the year before. Only around 42% were ever recovered, compared to over 85% for passenger cars. Motorcycles are the hardest vehicle to get back because they're the easiest to strip, move, and hide. And every single year since 2017, the most stolen motorcycle brand in America has been Honda, the brand that made the CB750. Rural barns and outbuildings are the primary holding point for stolen bikes waiting to be broken down or resold, off the road, off the grid, away from cameras. Multiple documented cases across the Pacific Northwest and Pennsylvania show the exact same pattern. Bikes acquired in the city, stored on rural properties, then listed as barn finds through private sales. No title, cash only. Belonged to my grandfather. That's the chop shop playbook. And if he buys the bike at the end of it, the police don't refund him. The burden of proof is on the buyer. The bike gets returned to the original owner. He keeps the loss. The legal precedent goes all the way to the United States Supreme Court. Collins v. Virginia began with a man buying a motorcycle without a title, under circumstances that a reasonable person would recognize as suspicious, then hiding it under a tarp, convicted of receiving stolen property. That conviction held. And VIN fraud makes it worse. VIN cloning means the number on the frame may perfectly match a legitimate motorcycle in another state. It looks clean. He takes it home, rides it for 2 years, and then there's a knock at the door. The NICB runs a free VIN check at nicb.org. Run it before you hand over $1. If you want the full history, a paid motorcycle report costs less than a tank of gas. Links in the description.
Act 5. The right way. How to actually do this. I'm not here to kill the dream. The dream is real, but the riders who actually find and legitimately acquire barn find motorcycles, the ones who don't end up in a hospital, a courtroom, or a police impound lot, they do it differently. The first rule costs nothing. You never cross a property line without permission. If you can see a bike through the siding, you find the property owner. You knock at the house. You introduce yourself. Most owners who've had a motorcycle sitting in their barn for 40 years have thought about selling it 100 times. Your knock might be the moment they've been waiting for. Once you have that handshake, you don't just walk in. Before you push that door open, you get eyes inside first. A cordless inspection camera, the kind that goes through a gap in the siding on a flexible cable, shows you the floor condition, the bike, whether there's animal nesting around it. You're seeing it before you're breathing it. A cordless inspection camera costs less than a tank of gas. Links in the description. When you do go in, with permission, in daylight, with someone who knows where you are, you wear what the situation demands. A proper respirator, gloves, long sleeves, snake gaiters if you're in the South, a headlamp, because the corners of an old barn are where everything dangerous lives. Before any money changes hands, you check the VIN, free at nicb.org, then a paid history report for the full picture. Any mismatch between the neck, the frame, and the engine, you walk away. No exceptions. You don't close without a title. There's no legitimate reason a motorcycle sitting in a family barn for 40 years can't come with paperwork. If the seller can't produce one, that's the reason to leave. Pay by cashier's check, load it on a trailer, get it registered before you ride it. That's how the dream stays a dream. Once it's home, a quality battery tender to keep the charge and a serious lock so it stays there. Links in the description.
The guy on the gravel road. Did he go in? In 1948, Rolly Free lay flat on a Vincent at 150 miles per hour on the Bonneville Salt Flats in nothing but a bathing suit, because the dream was worth the risk. That photograph exists. That record exists forever. But Rolly Free knew exactly what he was riding. He knew who owned it. He knew the machine. He'd prepared for every contingency except the one where his leathers tore. And even then, he made a decision with full information. That's the difference between a legend and a statistic. And honestly, most of the time, there's a reason that motorcycle stayed in that barn. The machine that's waited 40 years can wait one more week while you make a phone call. And if it turns out to be a 1969 Sandcast, call us first. Have you ever found a motorcycle in a barn? Did you walk away or did you go in? Drop it in the comments.
I want to hear from the people who actually know this world.